talking about something that it keeps getting swept under the rug, and it's something that's so pertinent in my life. I'm Afro Latina, I'm Puerto Rican and Dominican, and I'm very proud of my African roots, as well as my Latino heritage. I talk about it in my stand-up. I have a joke about how a black girl said to me, "You think you cute because you light-skinned and got good hair?" And I was like, "I'm light-skinned and I got good hair. I'm rolling with these bitches." She was like, "You know, if we were in slavery, you'd be in the house." And I was like, "You know, if we were in slavery, we'd be in slavery. What does my location matter? I'd rather be out in the field with LeBron James than in the house getting fondled by the Quaker Oats man." Okay, see, that's right, we got you going. So anyway, this conversation is a very important conversation, because Black people, sometimes we can be our best friends and we can be our greatest enemies, and we've learned this colorism thing, and colonization has been the ugliest thing to happen to all people of color throughout the world. So I think it's very important to have this conversation and to reach these intersections and talk about these groups of people that you never hear about. So I'm so proud and honored to bring up this panel of amazing talent that are representing us out there, and just to show people, America and the world, that Latinos come in all shades and colors, and we are beautiful in whatever shade that is. So are you ready for an amazing conversation? All right. So our first person coming to the stage is Royo. I'm gonna pronounce your name like your mom was supposed to, right? So he has a rare ability to give the characters that he plays depth and emotion without overshadowing his castmates. That's very important. He's like a Magic Johnson type of dude, And I mean, who watched The Wire? Bubbles made me cry on The Wire, I was like, this dude does crack for real. Right. This is method acting. Heroin. My bad. But you've seen him on Fringe, you've seen him on Heroes, you've seen him on Navy Street Elementary, Prime Minds, and Happy-ish. And now you get to see him on like one of the biggest shows on television, Empire. Give it up for Mr. Aida Rodgriguez. So we're speaking about Afro Latino experiences, and this next woman coming to the stage is part of one of our cult classics. I Like It Like That. Magdalena, right? We get so caught up in current credits that we forget the body of work of some of the people and some of the backs that we stand on. Like, this woman put the face of Puerto Rican women on television in all kinds of areas, not just currently being Mary Jane, but Lisa has just been working and always doing great work, which is something that a lot of times people of color are not held to the highest standard, but she always meets it and goes beyond. And you've seen her on Shameless, American Horror Story, The Event, Southland, TNT, and you can see her on my Instagram because she's my real friend. So give it up for Miss Lisa Vidal. I get to be on a panel with my friends. The next guy coming to the stage is, he's on Blackish, right? But he's also on Survivor's Remorse, The Last OG, which is coming out on TBS. And he's been writing something for me for the last 17 months, but because he keeps booking jobs, I can't work on his thing, because every time I turn around, he's on deadline booking another job. So I want his stuff to slow down so I can get a little bit. But he's just one of these he's one of the people that I run into when we're doing Hollywood stuff and we're doing stuff for the community. Like, nothing is beyond him. He's not above anything. We do things for young women in the STEM field. We're always in the hood, trying to get jacked and robbed and stuff, because we won't let it go. We keep going back to our people. And that's the one thing that I love about him and where we connect. So I want you to put your hands together for Mr. Maldonado. Let's go! So I just met this woman But I researched her yesterday, but she's one of my people because she's Dominicana. And, you know, it's so refreshing to see our people doing things behind the scenes as well as in front of the camera, because they don't know how dynamic and how amazing we are. They don't know our spectrum. They only know the exaggerations of who we are. And so when I read about her, she's from Massachusetts and I was born in Boston. So just because of that, we connect, because I'm petty. But this is where we really connect. She spent her late teens living in a world of addicts and learning the complexity of selling crack in a small town. Now, I did it in Miami, and she did it in a small town. Nonetheless, we know what baking soda is for. And so she took those experiences and turned them into something that she can share and educate people about who we are. And now she's going to be working on a show for STARZ called Vida. And she's worked on Narcos, and we get to have her today. So put your hands together for Miss Santa Sierra. So this guy, his name is Carlito Rodriguez, and my brother's name is Carlito, and my last name is Rodriguez. His not, because my mom gave us each our own dad. But we all have our own last names. But he is, you know, you've seen him. I mean, first of all, Carlito was the head Latino in chief for the Source. And we all know how important the Source has been to give us our hip-hop information. But, you know, like, he's a writer on Empire, but his name has touched Fox, HBO, and TV, VH1, BET, you know, EA games. And he's one of the people that when I met him, I've always wanted to stay connected to him because his consciousness is that of uplifting our people and moving us forward. And it's just hard to find that right now because so many of us are pandering because we want a pat on the head. But he's not doing that, right? So I want you to put your hands together for Mr. Carlito Rodriguez. So I'm just gonna start it off with one of the things that we made an agreement on backstage is that we were not going to allow ourselves to take this conversation into that bitter, negative place about Hollywood doesn't know what to do with us and what everybody is doing wrong. This panel is amazing and filled with talented people who are actually moving us forward, so I want to keep the conversation in a positive place and talk about like all of the great accomplishments that these heroes have made. Are you with me? Yeah. All right. So first of all, I want you to tell people what you are culturally, because you know that's the question that you get when you're ethnically ambiguous. What are you? I always say I'm from Pluto, but because that is a stupid question to ask somebody. But tell everybody, and we can start with you, Carlito, and come on down. What is your ethnic makeup?
I am Cuban and Dominican. My pops is Cuban. My mother's Dominican. Yeah.
I'm Dominican.
She said it like a Dominican.
Yeah, I'm black and Puerto Rican. My mother's black and my father's Puerto Rican.
Boricua, papi!
I am 100% Puerto Rican.
I am 50% Cuban and 50% Black Harlem.
So much culture. So I just want to kick it off. Right? What does being Afro Latinx mean to you? What does it mean to you?
Unfortunately, it just means a lot of responsibility. I have two different cultures I'm trying to represent, but Hollywood knows me as one. So it's a hard question for me to answer because I grew up, thinking I was just black. I mean, I grew up in the Bronx, but there was not that many Spanish people there, and I had a choice. I was just telling Leah, at least I had a choice between New Edition and Menudo. I went New Edition. Oh, sorry. My neighborhood, Candy Girl, was a lot better than Cat in the Plane at 7:30. That's the only song I know that Menudo did, so. Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out what Afro Latino means.
For me, being that I started acting as a kid. I was like 14 years old when I started. And I was really excited because I was part of a repertory theater company and we used to travel and perform and sing and everything. And then I landed my first series on PBS and it was all about this family in Spanish Harlem. And I was 14 and I was gonna be shooting and I felt so excited that they were gonna be telling a story about a Latino family because I grew up the earlier part of my life in Spanish Harlem feeling really comfortable about who I was and what I looked like. And then my parents, after a short stint in the Bronx, they were like, mira, we gotta get the kids out of here because esto por aquí está loco. And so, I'm sorry, honey. But, so my parents took us from the boogie down Bronx, where I was like, I feel good here and I know who I am, to like Whitestone, Queens, where it was like all Jews and Italians. And I was like, who are these people? And suddenly, I started to feel different. And the color of my skin, the size of my behind, my lips, everything, suddenly didn't quite fit. And that was a struggle for me, trying to find myself. And so that, identifying with being Afro Latina, my hair is really curly, and the Farrah Fawcett style was in back then, and I was like, Farrah Fawcett hair! But you know what? I figured it out, and I'm very proud of my African behind.
All right, give it up for that. Give it up for that. But yeah, I'm similar to Andre, man, as far as being black and Puerto Rican. My father passed when I was young, and so I was around other black people growing up. And at 9, I went to New York to visit my Puerto Rican side of the family and kind of been on that journey of discovering what Afro Latino means. And what I've discovered and I continue to discover is that it's something to be very proud of. It's something to be able to represent a culture in a way, in a positive way, and understand that, you know, my father would be proud from heaven of the things that I'm doing, and proud that I can vocally say that I'm Puerto Rican and Latin, and represent him in a way that I guess he wasn't able to, is a part of what it means to be Afro Latino, was to make my father proud with my actions and represent him.
For me, what it means is, I think language, just knowing Spanish is a big deal for me because I think it opens, it's like I'm part of two worlds, having grown up in America and also understanding this Mexican people and Spanish people, people from Chile, and it's just, I feel very united to everyone, even though I'm black, like I just feel like because we speak the same language. And as far as what does it mean for me being an Afro Latina, sometimes I have to explain it. Like I speak Spanish and I'm black, but it's okay. Like I take the time. Like yeah, there's people that look like me in Latin America, so that's not a problem for me.
I guess primarily because of my age now, right? I've had a long time to like process like what it means, but I'll start like this, right? Like my earliest recollection of this thing existing that could be called Afro Latino was in PS 90 in the Bronx. I think I was in the 4th grade, and I went to the boys' room. This is when they used to send you together, so you're not in the hallways fucking around. So I went with my friend Mark, and Mark is black, African American. I remember we went into the bathroom, and there were these 2 Spanish kids in there. It's the Bronx, it's the 70s, so I'm assuming they were Puerto Rican, right? They were lighter. And one of them said to the other one in Spanish, he looked at us and said, "Vámonos, vámonos." que estos morenos nos van a robar. Like, these black dudes are gonna rob us. And he walked out, and I was like offended, because I was like, I'm like 9 and shit, tough. He's gonna rob you. But he walked out, and I was like, why did he think I was black, though? And I said it to my friend, and then I went home and asked my parents that, and they just kind of like laughed. And, so that was like the first time that I like noticed that, you know what I'm saying? But being half Dominican and half Cuban, living in the Bronx where there weren't that many Dominicans at the time, so I was like surrounded by the Puerto Rocks and the black kids, I always felt like an other, right? And then my grandmother, you know, she died a year ago on the Cuban side, Santera, so everything was African constantly, right? And then on the Dominican side, not to get all like pedantic and heady, but on the Dominican side, I feel like there's always been like it's been a process for the Dominican side to like accept, yeah, motherfucker, there's a whole lot of African running through us. Like, it's been a process. I've gotten into like spats, like Thanksgiving blowouts, because the whole pelo malo shit and boo and all that nastiness that you said earlier, racism and colonialism. So for me, it started back then, and it's kind of been like this journey where, like Santa said, wherever I go, you know, when I on Empire, right? So I'm the only Latino writer on Empire. So it's when I first got there in season 2, one of my boys cracked this joke today. Most of the writers are African American, and one writer said, "Carlito, what are you? You mix or something, right?" And I was like, "I mean, what do you consider mixed? I'm Cuban and Dominican. I ain't really a mix. It's just like 2 different flags, really." And she goes, "Yeah, but you look like you black and something." Then I had to run her down through the whole, like, well, you know, they just, slavery, man, they just dropped a few of us off along the way. So that's how I've just been explaining it. Like, it's just slavery, man. They just, little drop-off points. All right, we're going to leave these here, we're going to go over there.
Yeah.
And here we are.
That's all it is.
That's the bright side.
Somebody tries to get fancy. I grew up in Miami, which is that I was surrounded by the Cubans, and the first time that I heard was somebody said to my mom, she would be perfect if it wasn't for her nose and her lips, because she's ordinaria, which means she has African features, and then my mom beat the video. So it was a very traumatic experience, because I was like, she's going to jail, and I just found out I was black. So there was a lot of stuff going on at one time, right? So those of you who speak Spanish, have you ever had someone, well, you just told your experience, but you ever had someone shocked that you speak Spanish? Because it happens to me all the time. People, like some Mexican people, always ask me, ¿Quién te enseñó a hablar español? Like, how did you learn? Like, who let you in the room? And I was like, mi madre. Santa?
Well, for me, yeah, it's been always since I moved to, I lived in Massachusetts, which is a very white state, very liberal state, but very white. And sometimes people were, I remember people would say things in Spanish because they thought that I didn't understand, and sometimes it wasn't nice things. And I would say, and then I would respond in Spanish, and they would be like, "Oh my God, I'm sorry, we didn't mean to say that." But I found in LA, especially the Mexican community to be very welcoming, and like it hasn't been like weird for them. It was more bizarre in the East Coast that I spoke Spanish as a black person than it is here. Here, they're just like, "Oh, you just speak Spanish?" Like, yeah, awesome, like next. So it's been a very positive experience here. In the East Coast, again, I think is the image of the Latino on television, I think, confuses some people. So that's just like, that's how I justify it. Because, you know.
What's funny for me is that when I did the movie I Like It Like That, I was supposed to be the white Latina. And I was very confused by that, because I never considered myself a white Latina. I always considered myself, you know, olive skin, curly hair, big lips, all that kind of stuff. And so when Lauren Velez, who is, you know, also Afro Latina, right? We had a whole conversation about it. And I was actually kind of offended that I was considered a white Latina because I was like, what are you talking about? I have African in me. And, but I will say that I forced myself to speak Spanish in the sense that I didn't want to lose it, because back then when I was growing up, it was like everybody wanted you to speak English, to reply in English. And my great-grandmother is the one that raised me, and because my parents worked, and all she spoke was Spanish. So I used to have to respond to her in Spanish, and then my other grandma she would give me the newspaper, el periódico, and she was like, tú tienes que leer del periódico, así tú puedes hablar correctamente, porque ese español que tú estás hablando ahí está todo arreglado. So I know he has no idea what I'm saying. So I made it a point to practice my Spanish. So for me, I guess I've sort of carried it through, so it's not as surprising, because, you know, I kind of make it a point that I am Latina, and I speak both Spanish and English.
So I want to ask each of you, I would like for each of you to answer, tell me an experience where you feel that being Afro Latino has been positive for you, like it worked in your favor and you're like, oh yeah, I get to be this guy today. Where being Afro Latino, having that Latin heritage has been a positive for you.
That's not me. I guess the only time that worked for me would be my first movie, Shaft. I auditioned for John Singleton, and I knew he was looking for a dark-skinned Latina to play Dominican, and I knew one sentence, cállate la boca, tú eres un muñeca ponto. That's what I knew. And that wasn't written in any of the script, but that's what I said before every line, so that it could flow. And it was very weird, because for me, it never really, the Latina part, I just didn't look at it. In their eyes, in their eyes, Al Pacino was Latin, so that was the look of Latin men back then. I mean, my first audition, and I knew the writer, was for Carlito's Way. And when I got in the room, they just laughed like, you're not Spanish, though. Like, we specifically said, we look for Spanish people, and I'm like, my last name is Royo, and they were like, speak Spanish. I said, cállate la boca, tú eres un They believed me, but then they had a meeting and just said, I didn't look Spanish. And for, Shaft, I didn't get the part, and John Singleton told me, Scott Wooden didn't think you looked Spanish. And apparently, the person who had the part was Terrence Howard. How the fuck he look Spanish? But that's just how they perceive. They, in my experience, they dictate what we're supposed to look like. And we gotta find our way to fit in or hope that either we're good enough that it doesn't matter, or that somebody in the room says, I'll buy it. Because when Terrence Howard left, or something happened, then they called me and said, yo, we want you to play the part. And I'm like, oh, I look Spanish now. I took it, because I needed to work. But, so for me, it just seems to be going back and forth. And, I can find a way to fit in and hope that my talent rises above what they perceive our race is supposed to look like.
And Jeffrey Wright was a Dominican in that movie.
That's right.
Yeah.
Carlito.
I mean, I guess as a writer, so it's obviously a different experience for me as a writer, because I'm not, I don't have to present in front of the camera, right? I don't know, honestly, just this whole attitude of being a hip hop dude, Generation X, everything was always like do it yourself. And so we never, we never waited. So I never viewed coming into this industry, like it took a while for me to understand. It took a visit to fucking Coffee Bean to me to understand what I looked like in the LA sphere. So I'm at a line at a Coffee Bean, right? And it was in the morning, and it was like people in front of me, like, fuck it, it was damn near this mixed up, like white, black, Asian, and then me. And the young woman behind the counter was a young woman of color, and everybody, she was like, good morning, can I help you? Super sunshiny. I'll have the blah, 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 next. And when I got up there, I was like, I'm trying to not be the New York dude with the scowl. I'm like all sunshine and happy. Yeah, good morning, how you doing? And she was like, yes. And I was like, oh shit, right? Let me get the whatever. And I'm not I'm not like a paranoid dude. It was obvious what just happened, and I could not figure that out. And one of my other friends, my boy Renee, Puerto Rican brother, was like, yo, it's weird out here, man, but look how you look. You got the bald head, you got the tattoos. They probably can't make out. Is he black? Is he like a cholo Mexican gangbanger dude? And that fucked me up, right? So now I've never had to be like careful, and I don't like not being who I am. So now I try to figure out a way really quick in meetings to like gauge what's happening here. I don't have a problem sharing my past. I was in prison, yada, 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 but that shit can't define me. You know what I'm saying? Because then it becomes, then all the phone calls are about, hey, Carlito, so since you're Latino and you were locked up, we got this great idea about this dude, drug dealer. And that's all well and good if we can create complex characters. So for me, the journey has been mainly about how can I take some of this, right? And just give different nuances. My experience primarily, when you see a dark-skinned, more African-looking Latino in TV or film, especially if they're Cuban, maybe the baseball player or the fucking hitman who's coming to chop your head off in the middle of the night, right? I was telling somebody in a cab the other day, one of my favorite, like, two characters that I used to love watching on Southland was Kevin Alejandro and Laz Alonso. Because both of them, in their scenes, without explaining shit, would just start talking Spanish. I'm like, yes, do it like that. Weave it into the tapestry. You don't gotta ask no questions. You don't gotta be the lone Cuban cop who's facing the blah blah. Just happens to be Cuban or whatever, Puerto Rican, and he's working on the on the LAPD. So as very much as I possibly can, I try to just make this just be matter of fact. Just very matter of fact. I'm just here to tell some stories.
Alan?
Well, for me, it's I guess it's bigger than entertainment for me, meaning that it was, how it helped me was because I was undefined, being that, in the black side of my family, I wasn't black enough, and the Puerto Rican side, I wasn't Puerto Rican enough. So I always felt kind of outside of the pack, but which forced me to identify with me. Meaning that can't nobody do me better than me. And I had to quickly understand that it's not about anything outside of that. How do I define me from what I've seen, what I've been through, and my perspective? So kind of that isolation, being alone makes you strong type of thing is what really defines me as a person, and everything that I do outside of that is a reflection of that strength. That my actions should define me. My skin color, my ethnicity is a part of that. My culture is something that I represent. But as far as what I do and how I inspire people is all built on my actions and who I am as a person. And that's where it's really, helped me out as an individual, and it's a reflection of my work and everything that I try to do.
So what I want to ask all of you, for me, it was really hard to find sometimes someone that I could look at that was on screen that looked like me and was like me. Like people used to always say, oh, you look like Coco from Fame or whatever. But my heroes, the people who gave me strength were like Celia Cruz, who was so proud of her Afro Latina. And, and I grew up listening to Spanish music and I grew up. Who are some of the people that you looked up to that were Afro Latinos that you said that inspired you? Or, who inspired you?
You talking about me?
I'm talking to all of you.
Oh, okay.
You sound like you want to fight. You talking to me. You got your Timbs on today. You aggressive. That's the black side. They do it with white shoes with no socks on. Santa, who are some of your role models?
Well, I would say that for me, growing up Dominican, I probably had a lot of the same issues that I see myself on television or even politicians. But I do remember taking a liking to Juan Luis Guerra, and not because he's Afro Latino, but because he was one of the few people that really embraced the African culture of the Dominican side of it. And I just remember seeing his videos and he had black people in it. And I was like, wow, I have to see myself on a music video. That was pretty much the only way when I was a child in the Dominican Republic. So in that sense, I was always looking for that person that looked like me in the novelas. I remember Celia Cruz was in a novela, in a Mexican novela, where I think she played the maid, of course. But it is being a black kid in Latin America and not seeing yourself, I think it disturbs the way you see what beautiful is. So I just remember growing up and thinking, like, what is somehow, for a while, as a kid, I aligned beauty with light skin. And that's because that's just the way it is in the Dominican culture. So as I became a teenager, I moved to Massachusetts and started hanging out with African Americans. And that was like, wow, this is my culture too. I identify with black people a lot. And a lot of my friends were African Americans and are African Americans. And some of my friends are from Haiti. And the way they see blackness is very different than us Latinos. So I think it's more of like, here I am and just this is who I am and I'm proud of it. And that really helped me as a kid to be like, you know what, like, I don't have to alisar my hair anymore. I don't have to put that crap in my hair to make it straight. And look, I've had it for like 5 years, and this is the best that I've felt in my entire life. So.
I want all of you to answer this, but remember that name, Juan Luis Guerra, because I think it's important to get an education. So Juan Luis Guerra is a Dominican singer, very popular with the group 440, who did put black people, I was just listening to him here. So I want you to take note of these people if you've never heard of them and look them up, because everybody in here is affected by this. We all bleed into each other, and these people are all our heroes and the ones that paved the way for us. Carlito, who's your role model?
Not in that definitive like Afro Latino space. I mean, baseball players. You know what I'm saying? When I was a kid, I got certain baseball players. But I gotta explain why I feel like, because just even the concept of Afro Latino, right, is like that bears discussion. For example, if I was to send my father right now, hey, look, I'm on this panel, he would crack up. All my brothers on the Dominican side, like, Afro Latino, what are you talking about? Right? You said earlier about being light-skinned and good hair, right? So growing up in the Bronx for me, Dominican, Cuban, look the way I look. Don't let the baldy fool you, y'all. I had to blow out. It was a nice.
Oh, you had to blow outside? Word, okay.
I was so proud of it that one time I lost my pick and I tried to do it with a fork. I couldn't get it right, and I was like, fuck it, I'm not going to school today. But just the idea of even being okay with identifying with the Afro part of it, that has been a process, right? So in the Bronx, like I said earlier, most of my friends looked a certain way except for the quote-unquote, the black kids, the African-American kids, right? My mom's died, I moved to Manhattan, and that neighborhood was predominantly black, right? So all of a sudden, in the Bronx, I'm 13, no love from the girls. Nobody fucking with me like that. I go to Manhattan, everybody's black. Ooh, Eddie, who's your cousin? My cousin Eddie and George, rest in peace, Eddie. They have more African features, so they fit right in. Now here I come, who's your light-skinned cousin? All of a sudden I'm super popular. Or black girls like me, and I was like, say word. What have I been missing out on? And that was like my first identifying with like, well, wait a minute, what is this definition of black? What is this definition of Afro Latino? The best that I can come up with, and this is not even it, right? I by no means hold the trademark to this thing. The best that I can come up with, whenever I get challenged from African Americans, for example, you Dominicans, y'all ain't trying to be black, y'all don't identify with black. I give them a little bit of a tidbit. You gotta understand two things. In the Caribbean and in South America, it was the exact opposite of the United States identifying with blackness. In the United States, the fucking 1/16th, the one drop rule craziness, right? Oh, you black. You could look like my girlfriend Leah right there. If somebody found out her grandfather was my color, you black, right? In the Caribbean and in South America, it was the exact opposite. And you could literally be super dark skinned, straight up African, make enough money that if you're not a slave no more and you own land, you're gonna register yourself and your family in the Hall of Records as white. That's why to this day, when you look at the census on Wikipedia or whatever the fuck, and you see population of Cuba, 80% white, you're like, how in the hell is Cuba 80% white? Dominican Republic, 75% white. What? Because to this day, those identifications persist. All that is to say that how we, meaning the American, United States people, identify blackness is not the same way we identify it in the Caribbean. It's just different, right? It doesn't mean that we don't want to be, especially not me at all, by far. Like I went through a phase, public enemy, fight the power and all that, where I didn't want to date nobody but like dark skin, like the darker you are, yeah, let's go, mama. Right? That if someone is willing to have a conversation, whether it's a Hispanic person who's like willing to like open up and be like, and get off that, tu tienes que ir de negro shit, because I've caught hell for that. Venga, loco, tu tienes que ir de negro, Imagen. Or a black person saying to me, I don't want to be black. I try to bring them to the table and say, okay, so if you can agree that there's a distinction between African American and black, then we can start the conversation there. I know Jamaicans that are like, I ain't black. I'm Jamaican. I'm African, but I ain't one of these African American. You know what I'm saying?
They're not
these little
Yankees.
cultural, right? They're not Yankees. They don't want to be Yankees. And we can at least start the conversation there. So role models, it's been tough. And again, just even coming to terms with Afro Latino. I looked on the flyer and I was like, all right, let's do it. I'm ready to do it. Not because of the way I identify. I know who I am. I'm all in. I'm all for it. I actually get a kick out of talking to people that like, you know, where that question arises. Can I say this though? Because you brought it up earlier and I wanted to jump in. So here's another instance that I got a real kick out of this. I was in prison. There was a lot of Cuban dudes in prison who never saw the light of day. They've been locked up since 80, since the Maria. They never let them out, okay? For no crime, just other than we suspect you did some shit in Cuba, you ain't never getting out. So it's the early 90s, and I got cool with all of them because, hey, Maria, tú eres cubano, no, hey, we out there, right? So all that good stuff. And I remember one day I was on the dorm, and I had been there about 3 months. And the dude next to my bunk, African American dude, black dude, and we was crazy cool, I ain't bi, dude from Ohio. And all of a sudden, I'm in this long conversation with this Cuban dude, you know, and all this shit, and we're talking and engaged, whatever. And he walks away, okay, another way. I turn around, and the black dude was like, and he goes, yo, where you learn to speak that shit? And I was like, what shit, Spanish? I'm fucking Cuban. And he went, oh man, I thought you was a brother. And they didn't fuck with me no more. And I was like, whoa. So I try to be a cultural ambassador, y'all, really. Like I try to just, look, man, colonialism is
The biggest mind fuck of all time. Al, what about your role models?
I'm in the same boat, man. I really can't point out any as far as that look like me. And I think that's the reason why I do so much in the community, is because I want to provide that for kids that were in my same position. You know what I mean? I could look at Andre and say he's one of the guys that I looked up in the game as far as watching him and finding out, oh, he's Latin too? Oh, shit. You know what I'm saying? That, it's more of a discovery. So I'm guessing that for me, I'm discovering some of the people that I look up to are biracial as well. And I'm like, oh, shit, oh, okay, well, I could relate to that. You know, it's still, I'm in that same position where I'm still discovering people that, you know, are of Black descent that, you know, that look like me. What's my man that was on,
Breaking Bad.
Giancarlo.
Yeah. When I found out, I was like, oh, word, okay, that's it, because that's something as far as when you look as an actor, when you're building your career, you're looking at these people that are successful, and you're like, yo, I want to model my career after these individuals, and you know, definitely for black people, there's the Denzel, you know, the Will Smith, you know what I mean? There's the Tom Cruise for white people, you know what I'm saying? But somebody that's Afro Latino, it's like, who? You know, because it's not really announced.
Yep.
It's not really announced, and that's something that I've been more, and like I said, in being me, and nobody can do me better than me, is that I'm very loud about who I am.
Yeah, you are.
I'm very loud about who I am. I'm from the projects, I'm from the hood, I come in sagging, I don't give a fuck. You know, I go into meetings like this, and I remember going in like with suits and trying to be something out of else, and that's just wardrobe. But that was just an extension of my insecurities of what I've been through, rather than hide or run from that element where, you know, me growing up with gangbangers and drug dealers and all this other stuff, and hiding it, I made it my asset. So now people look at me like, oh, okay, all right, well, how, you know, but they forget that I was a Boy Scout from 7 to basically 15, I was an Eagle Scout. So it's a lot of, you know, layers to me that I let people discover. And my exterior has nothing to do with who I am as a person. And again, that boils down all the way to my ethnicity, where I'm just proud of who I am and who I am as black and Latino.
Yeah, it's very infectious. Lisa, who are some of the people you looked up to?
Well, you know, in my family, you know, my family is, we have so much diversity just within my family. I mean, I have a cousin named Chino.
Yeah, my brother's Chino.
Okay.
So is mine.
I mean, literally, he's got like the straight hair and everything. And then my great grandmother was Black India, like black, you know. So, and then I have one that was like Blanca. So there's so much diversity within my own family, and I think I grew up with such strong women in my family that had strong identity of themselves and the color of their skin and who they were. So they would consistently kind of just pounding that in me. And so, you know, my mother, I remember when we first moved to where I told you, Queens, and I was like, I don't belong here, I don't look like these people. And my mother was like, ¿Qué? She was like, espérate, esta gente se sientan en la playa, ¿ok? Y se queman la piel para parecer como ti, ¿ok? And that's what my mother said. So, my mother said, right, so let me tell you, for the Spanish impaired, my mother said, what? These people sit on a beach all day burning their skin to look like you. And you know, that was my mother and the women in my family. So again, I grew up with so much diversity, whether it was the music, the bands that were Afro-Cubano, you know, my dad always had music on. And of course, for me, honestly, it was like Rita Moreno. As soon as I saw Rita Moreno in West Side Story, I was like, oh, she kind of looks like my aunt, you know? And I felt at that moment, first of all, she was doing everything that I loved. She was acting and singing and dancing and everything. So when I saw that, that's when it all opened up for me. And I sort of felt like I could see myself there. And, you know, it saddens me. I think that the biggest thing that saddens me, because I love my black brothers and sisters, and you know, they have so accepted me, especially like the show on BET being Mary Jane. Like, they just love that I address my Afro-Cuban roots on the show a lot. You know, we make jokes and stuff like that. And it saddens me that we within our own community have such racism.
Yes.
That is so disturbing to me. I don't understand it. I don't get it. And like, I get so excited knowing that he's got Cuban in him, that he's got Puerto Rican in him. It's like, yes, that makes total sense, you know? So it just doesn't make sense to me when we separate ourselves because of the color of our skin or the texture of our hair within our own community. It's like, I bet you a whole bunch of people out there don't even know they have Black and Latino in them.
Yep. You can speak on your role models.
You know, it's hard to say. I'll get choked up a little bit by just hearing everybody talk. Carlito was, I guess, a role model for me here. I didn't have one per se Afro Latino. I guess my father was my biggest role model because when I, first said I wanted to be an actor, waiting for the fucking, the drawback. I'm saying hell no. And he was like, go ahead, go for it. You got the personality. You can do it. Just don't look for you. Just be. He said, don't look for. You're not gonna find. That person that's going to say, you belong here, you just got to be there. And it's the same with my daughter. My daughter's half black, Spanish and Korean, and she was modeling for a little while when she was real little. And then when she thought about being an actor when she was little, she got turned off because every audition she went on, she was sitting in a room full of people that didn't look nothing like her. And she said, I couldn't find where I belong, I couldn't find where I fit in. And I was like, well, when you were modeling, when you was on the Gap ads and all that, there were people walking into that Gap ad and seeing you and saying, oh, I do fit in. I am there, but you couldn't see it because you were doing it. So I feel the same way where, coming out. I was doing theater, Lower East Side, I was doing theater, and it was nothing but just, if you had the chops, you belong. That was it. Once you got into film and television, that's the first time I heard, you don't fit in, you don't look Spanish for Spanish, you don't look black for black, you're gonna have to get lucky. Ain't you Ethiopian? What's going on? Like, it was just a lot of joints. I was like, no, I'm just can I just be me? Is that not enough? And they're like, yeah, but if we cast you, we have to explain you. And you ain't big enough for us to explain you. You know what I mean? Like, so it was a weird thing where I just had to say, okay, if I'm not gonna find it, I'm gonna have to dictate with talent, with tenacity, with just never giving up. And then I started seeing stuff like Luis Guzman. He was like one of the first dudes I was like, well, he got the height too, little motherfucker. Come on. I can work, it was just energy of just wanting to fit in. So I would have to give it up to my dad for that. Keep me focused.
Not stepping away from the conversation, but I want to make sure that we focus on who you are and what you guys are doing. What is the work that you are most proud of, and what are some of the steps you took to excel at?
I guess I'll jump on that. I guess the platform that I just created, Everybody Digital, being that rather than talk about it, rather than complain about it, I created a platform where people of color and could make their own content. Where, as the founder and CEO of this new company, it's a short film mobile app where we create original content and it's a streaming service. It's basically the short film version of Netflix. And the person running it is Black and Latino. So our stories will be told, and that's something that I'm very proud of, to be able to say that I'm creating a network and creating a lane for individuals that look like me and go through the same situations to express their story and not be judged and not, be misunderstood. I think a lot of times, our stories aren't told just because they don't understand it. They don't understand it, and it's hard for somebody to invest millions of dollars in something they don't understand, So I invested my own money in it and created this thing, willing to sacrifice, my funds in order to make this happen. So that's I'm most proud of right now. Thank you.
Anyone? I want to hear from all of you.
Well, I would say right now I'm working, can you guys hear me? I'm working on a show that is every staff writer, every writer is a Latino, the showrunner is a Latino, it's Vida, created by Tanya Saracho. It's going to be on STARZ, and that is probably going to be, I believe, the first all-Latino show on cable. That's my understanding, scripted.
What's it about?
What is it about? It's about two sisters who come back to Boyle Heights after not being in just living their lives and their mom passes away, and they come back and find out that their mom has been married to a woman. So it's a show that investigates sexuality in the Latino community. It's also a little bit about gentrification, which is happening a lot in Boyle Heights and Inglewood and so many places. So that's probably, hopefully we get a second season, because my showrunner, 95% of the crew is Latino, and that's something that is a mandate for her, that everyone has to be Latino. Now I've been trying and campaigning to get an Afro Latino in the cast. I mention it basically every single day. But, so they still haven't listened to me, but I think eventually I will get my way. But yeah, so.
I guess, I mean, it's without doubt The Wire would probably be the thing I'm most proud of, because of so many just challenges that were faced my way where I didn't want to, when I got the audition, I didn't want to do it. I thought the idea at that time of playing a junkie was the kiss of death for any up-and-coming black actor. It'd be stereotyped or, put in a box. And then, at the same token with that, I was like, I can't be any better than fucking Gator or Pookie. Like, how do I make this character stand on his own when I've seen greatness done by Sam Jackson or Chris Rock or what have you, or so many other actors that stepped into that realm. And then when we were doing the show, this is the show The Wire, funny enough, the show, if you look, it did not work. It wasn't a hit on HBO. We never got nominated. We were always under par. We got like half a star write-up or, 1 star write-up when we first started. There was too many characters, it was too slow. And the idea of us really talking about, real people, when I went to Baltimore and spent 3 months just, hanging out with people with the addiction and understanding that they're just human beings, the idea of me saying, you know what, let's give it all the cliches and just be human and trust that there might be enough for people to buy it and get into it. They told me I got, the showrunner said you got 7 episodes, that's it. But you might become a cliche. We don't want that to happen. So the idea that I can go 5 seasons and that people could respond to what we did, it wasn't me, what we did, but we were just, again, a brick show. It did not work. They said we were too wordy, there was too many characters, they couldn't understand what we were saying, and it was just too long, too slow. And then find out later on in 2017, 18, that people still talk about it, and they understood that these characters were multi-layered, and you were seeing real people. To be a part of that, and know that you entertain and inspired and educated at the same time, with anybody or any piece of art, is magnificent.
Man, people consider that one of the best television shows.
That is one of the best written shows And you ask yourself, how do you outdo Gator and Pookie?
Yeah.
You did it.
That's right.
You did it. You became iconic, and it was amazing.
Yes, and God, just the performances were just extraordinary on that show. I think for me, in my career, when I first started out, all I used to get sent out for were like prostitutes, maids, and drug dealer girlfriends.
That ass.
It was ass. And, I had to take a risk, and I had to tell my agent, do not send me out for these roles anymore because I'm not gonna go. And if you don't start working hard on getting me auditions, playing anything other than, the degrading idea of what every Latino you think is doing or looks like, I said, I'm not gonna do it. And it was a big risk I took, but I felt like I needed to do that. And so, not that I wouldn't play a prostitute, a maid, or a drug dealer girlfriend, or any of those things. It's just that I felt like it was perpetuated. I felt like that's all that was available. So I think I'm most proud of breaking that mold. I have purposefully gone after roles that were professionals, doctors, lawyers, producers. I want to be that Latina actress that's representing that Latino. And so I'm trying to create a show, you know. She's a kick-ass prosecutor from the hood, and it's based on a real character. And so I'm just banging down doors because they all say, oh yeah, we want a Latin show. Oh yeah, we want a Latin lead. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And then nobody wants to give it to you. Nobody wants to do it. And this is good, people. Like, I partnered up with like one of the biggest director, producer, showrunners. You know, we've got this unbelievable guy who's co-producing as well that used to run one of the networks. I mean, these are like, I'm not walking in with, you know, Tweedledee and Tweedledum. And it's still not good enough. But we're still just trying to bang down that wall because it's like, no, this is a story that should be told. This is a real person. This is a real Latina. So I think that's the work that I'm most proud of, just trying to, like everybody I think of here is kind of breaking molds that need to be broken and, you know, change that.
I guess, you know, in the context of this conversation, it's being, you know, like people. Now I don't want this to come off like, you know, yay me, but writing for Empire, and when people see Rodriguez and Carlito like that, you know what I'm saying, like that, you know, again, I don't want to come off like immodest, but like it's a black show and nobody questions me on it. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I've been on panels for the show, I've been on meetings, whatever, and nobody's sitting there scratching their heads going, but it's a black family, but you're, you know what I mean? The fact that I could just weave that right in, I feel really good about that. I feel really like, you know, I don't have to beat a drum in there and go, let's get more Hispanics on the show. Like, I don't have to do that. Season 2, we created this character. Cookie needs a love interest and whatever, and you know, and it's gonna be a dude, and he's gonna be secretly a promoter, but he's part of a gang, all this other shit. And it wasn't even me. It was one of the women in the room who was like, oh, can we get Aida Rodgriguez? He's hot. And I was like, oh shit, that's my boy. Like, I didn't even think of it. And it became Aida Rodgriguez. You know what I'm saying? And the fact that to those of us who grew up in and around hip hop, like part of it, creating it, chronicling it, whatever, having a character like Aida Rodgriguez with no explanation that there's this Puerto Rican dude and Cookie getting together because it's New York, we had to explain that. There wasn't no extra layers to that shit. That kind of stuff makes me proud because it makes me feel like, all right, so there's a theme to this body of work that I'm trying to put together that's working so far. So it's that.
So we're gonna wrap it up and take questions from the audience, but I would like for each of you to promote what you have coming up and just share with everybody what they have to look forward to and seeing you and what's coming up next. So start with Carlito, come on down, and then we'll ask some questions.
I feel like there's a lot of things in the pipeline, but first and foremost, I'm very, for many reasons, very proud to say that I'm developing something with my lovely girlfriend, who's getting tired of me referring to her as girlfriend. I know. We're gonna get it right. So we're working on something that we're very, very, very excited about. Like Lisa says, like we're going in armed, like we're going in with a little army. The studio is excited. I'm partnered up with our showrunner on Empire, Eileen Shakin. She's excited about it. And it's about a Latino family in Houston who's got this recording studio, has been in their family for a few generations. Tragedy strikes, and the mom, because she's a fucking rock star badass, is trying to keep the family together and, you know, take everybody to the stars. With, ready, Latinos in the house, a splash of magical realism.
Yeah!
Next year, y'all, fingers crossed, you see it on TV.
Like Water for Chocolate is my favorite movie.
Well, right now, like I mentioned, Vida, that's going to be, I believe, in May. It's going to come out on STARZ, and what I really love about that show is that there's no gang members, there's no drug dealers, it's just a family being a family, just Latinos being human beings, and sometimes we don't really see that with television that much. I am working on a medical show. That is my obsession. Medical shows, which sounds maybe bizarre, but eventually that's what I would like to have on television. A medical show created by a Latina and probably main character being Latina.
So it is.
Right after the last OG coming out with Tracy Morgan, Tiffany Haddish, Cedric Entertainer, and executive produced by Jordan Peele. That will come out next year. I'm also joining the writers' room for season 2 as that. Was I supposed to announce that? But yeah, but that's happening. All that is happening. And then he said, then I got Everybody Digital. Everybody Digital is out now. You can download it in your app store. Again, as I mentioned, it's the short film version of Netflix. It's something I'm very proud of and working on for the past 2 years. We launched 2 weeks ago. We're getting some incredible numbers, incredible press right now. So you got an iPhone, pull it out. I will run up on you later and make sure you did it. Very aggressive, as you may see. But yeah, download the app, definitely.
And I hope to be one of your actors on one of your shows.
No, let me tell you something. When you was missing in the show, I wanted to be like Suge Knight and to be like with, the other cats that they don't understand the Latino story. They want to spend the money up for you. Come to Everybody Digital. I can't wait to that.
See, and that's what has to happen. That's what has to happen is that the Latinos behind the scenes, when they gain the power, they need to bring us in. Little by little, right? I feel like that's what Shonda Rhimes did. You know, like she wrote these shows, these characters, and the leads were white. She was very smart. But then she started coloring them and sprinkling them. More color, and then all of a sudden she was like, now let me present you with this. And they were like, this woman's so great and talented, oh my God, we can't say no. And that's what we have to do. That's what we have to do. Anyway, that's what I'm trying to do. Like I said, mentioned before, I'm still very passionate about acting. I love acting. It's my dream. It's what I've always loved doing, performing and acting and everything. So I've got this great film on Netflix called Victor. It's based on a true story that's playing now. But honestly, now my dream and my goal is to create. I want to create. I want to create content. I think that we are extraordinary people and they just scared of us. They scared us. We're going to take over. That's what's going on. So I'm, like I said, if any of y'all are interested, I got several ideas, especially strong Latina female characters. I'm coming, baby. I'm coming.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important that we all know that it's about power, gaining the power, getting yourself in position so that you can, start bringing in your peoples. But without the power, it becomes hard. And my stint on Empire, I'm having a great time, and it was important to be on Empire because it is one of the biggest shows, and it keeps me relevant. It keeps people seeing my work, seeing what I bring to the table. Hopefully, me doing shows and acting is my thing. So I want to act and I want to create characters that hopefully gain me some power, so that I can then put myself in a position to do other work and behind the camera, producing, and that's what I like to do. I mean, the one thing that I'm working on after Empire, when it's all said and done, is the James Baldwin project, and that's something that I would love to put into the universe. And we got the puzzle lined up. We just got to put it together, and continue working.
And I quickly just want to plug on October 23rd, I am hosting a comedy show at the Hollywood Laugh Factory to raise money for Puerto Rico and Mexico victims of the recent tragedies. So please get a ticket. Russell Peters is headlining, Faison Love is co-headlining, and we have a lineup of some of the biggest comedians coming through to deliver So make sure you Lisa's gonna be there. We're gonna raise money for Voices for Puerto Rico and the Let's Give movement. And I'm going to Mexico and I'm going to Puerto Rico and I'm taking food, I'm taking water. So please come to the show and support it. Thank you. Give it up for this amazing panel. Now we want to hear from the stars in the audience. If you have any questions, please stand up. And how are we going to handle this? Let's get you a microphone.
She jumped on quick right there.
Oh, you can yell it out. Andre said yell it out.
So my name is Chris Garcia.
Oh, my bad.
I'm 13 years old. We just moved like last week here to LA from Utah to pursue my dream of becoming an actor. So I just wanted to see, I wanted to ask, what advice could you give me as an upcoming Latino actor making it here in Hollywood?
First thing is that it's, this is my opinion, so what I see acting is not a career, it's opening a small business. That's the perspective I always suggest all my upcoming actors to see it as. Being that when you get a career, you get the check first week out. When you start a small business, you're in the red for 5 years. You have to invest in yourself, you have to self-promote, you have to self-market, you have to self-brand, you have to do all these things. You have to create this business plan of what you want to do, how you want to do it, how you want people to see, and who is your core demographic. All those things are similar to a business rather than a career where you go 1, 2, 3, I go to school, I graduate, and I get a job. So understand that this is a business, and understand that you are a brand, and you are a product now, and who are you selling it to? For example, Coca-Cola's red, white, polar bears, stuff. Have a Coke and a smile. Mountain Dew is extreme. All the colors are lime green, yellow, and it's got the commercials of dudes flipping off of buildings. They have a core demographic, they have a target. Which one are you? And define who you are so people can understand what you're selling and what they're buying.
Small business, you're going to be giving out a whole lot of jobs.
For our show, right now we have Carmen Cuba as a casting director, and she casted Stranger Things. And I've heard a really good comment about what she sees in young actors. She says, the children or young actors that I like are the ones that are better at being themselves.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to I'll add on to that by saying that you heard him say that nobody can do you better than you. Okay, so you need to be unique, and that means that don't try to be like anybody else. Be who you are, and also know your craft. Know what you're doing. If you want to stand out as an actor, go learn to be an actor. Don't just say, oh, I want to be an actor, and then you don't do anything to train yourself and to work your muscle and your body and everything that comes along with being an actor. But you're going to be unique because nobody can do you. Like it was said.
She means that. She's actually coached me for audition before. She's not nice. I was auditioning against her sister, and she coached me for that audition, and she kicked my ass. And her sister got the job. I hate them. She set me up. You were going to answer.
Oh, I mean, everything that's been said up here so far is great, and you just have to be you, trusted, and respect the art, respect the craft. But I'm more with Carlito. I wouldn't be here unless I had a great support group, and especially my friends. You know, there's certain times when the door closes, you don't get that part, you start doubting yourself, and my crew's always there like, nah, we got you, we believe in you. And you know, there'll be moments when you just feel like, do I belong here? Like, is it really worth it? Is it working? And your crew is the one that's going to be there behind you going, yeah, it's worth it. It's worth it. So surround yourself with people that just want you to win.